And then we went to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, got deployed. And that's when I learned all about the job, really, because I got my first combat controls as an A1C at right before Desert Storm, basically.
Okay.
So went with First Cav, Second Brigade, Blackjack, and I was the bad airman, right? So I got put not at a battalion. I got put with the Brigade ALO at the Brigade TAC. And yeah, our Brigade ALO, he was an F4 backseater, and everybody called him the Desert Flower. That was not his call sign, but we called him the Desert Flower. But yeah, the first time I really learned about how important this job was a week and a half before the ground war started. So the air war was going on. I mean, we were sitting about 12 clicks south of the Iraqi border. So the Wadi system that goes between Kuwait and Iraq on the western side of Kuwait, eastern side of Iraq, south of Basra that goes down to Saudi Arabia. There's a Wadi system there that delineates the border. And what we did the big push out west, but the leadership wanted everybody, the Iraqis, to think that we were going to attack up that Wadi system. So First Cav got tasked with doing feints across the border a week and a half before the ground war started. So we were going 20, 30 clicks inside of Iraq with a very small force to make like probes in to give the Iraqis the sense that we were going to go that direction.
Oh, okay.
So one day we went up with the Brigade TAC, a platoon of M1s, and a scout platoon, and a Vulcan, and that was it, right?
Wow.
Like, alone and unafraid.
Yeah.
We had no support. We had on-call air support if we wanted it. You had to coordinate it through the ABCCC, everything. So I'm in my 113. We go across the border, cruising along, and we come up this like rise. We're on the west side of the Wadi. The tanks are down in the Wadi itself, and we've got the scout platoon in front of us. I've got the Vulcan off to my left, and the brigade commander's M1, and the sergeant major's 113 is next to me on the right. So we get up there, and there's a trench. And like 20 Iraqis jump up and start shooting AK-47s at the Bradleys.
Whoa.
Right? Yeah. And so the Bradleys open up with 25 millimeter, and dudes start disappearing, as they get hit with a 25 millimeter.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, we're in the shit now. And so they all give up. And we had no guidance on what to do with they called them EPWs, enemy prisoners.
Sure.
So we had nothing to put them in. There was no trucks. There was nothing like that. So the brigade commanders flex cuff them and strap them with a cargo strap to the front of the Bradleys. Right?
Yeah.
So there's 8 dudes strapped to the front of these Bradleys, right? They killed the rest of them.
Yeah.
So we continue moving up this rise, and the scout Bradleys had got to the top of the rise, and we were just below the top of the rise. Like you could see beyond it, but the vehicle was somewhat in defilade.
You're right.
And the sergeant major came on the radio and was like, "Why the hell does the Vulcan stopped?" Right? And I look over to the left, and that Vulcan is sitting 20 yards away from me, and there's smoke. The back door is open about a halfway, and there's smoke coming out of the turret of it and the back door. I was like, well, yeah, that can't be good. Sergeant Major jumps out of his track. He runs over there, and he comes out, and we're wearing mop gear and everything, and he's got blood on him. And we're like, oh, holy shit. Well, it turns out that the Vulcan took a direct round from a 100 millimeter recoilless gun.
No way.
And it hit the seam between the turret in the top of the 113
Yeah.
and basically cut the gunner in half and the TC in half. So that's when we realized, okay, now we're in a no kidding direct fight,
Right.
right? So like 30 seconds later, the world exploded, and like we started receiving artillery, like a lot of artillery. So rounds are exploding all around us. We had the top of my track open, and there's dirt flying in. There's shrapnel hitting the side of the track.
Jeez.
When we got back, I had a piece of shrapnel about this long that had come through the side of my track, and it was about that far from the back of the HF radio and the Jerk 206 pallet.
Man.
So anyway, I drop down and I start filling out a paper 1972, right? Because
Right.
I'm like, we need cash. So I've got my big map board hanging in the track, and I'm like filling this thing out. And I get on the HF radio and I call in an immediate cash request. And meanwhile, the ALO is trying to cover himself up with sandbags on the floor of the 113, believe it or not.
Jeez.
And he's crying. He's like, I didn't sign up for this shit. And so I get the ASOC on the radio and send my 1972. And, the weather was kind of crap.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, are you under fire? And I said, stand by. And I clicked the handset and I held it outside the hatch.
Yeah.
Like, you hear that? That's freaking incoming fire on my position. And they were like, okay, stand by. So a buddy of mine sitting in division, Angel Mendoza.
Yeah, I know Angel.
Yeah, so Angel heard me, right? And it was him and Kyle Neal. They heard what was going on, and they called ABCCC up and sent me a 4-ship of A-10s.
Nice.
Right? So I filled out a paper 9 line, right? And I'm doing ECAS.
Yeah.
I'm not ETAC certified at that point.
Right.
Back then it was very limited on how many enlisted guys got to be TAC certified, right? So I filled out my paper 9 line. They checked in. I took their check-in. I passed them a 9 line. I could see in the distance the artillery, and you can see the flashes and stuff from the artillery unit that's shooting at us.
Wow.
So I called it in, and they came below the weather. I think the weather deck was probably about 1,000 feet, right? So I got a 4-ship A-10s right behind me circling with Mavericks. And the first guy came right over the top of us, cleared him hot, and the Maverick came off the wing and it flew like 300 feet above the track and went downrange, and it hit something. I don't know what it hit, but there was a huge like mushroom cloud explosion, right?
Yeah.
And then immediately the artillery stopped, and then the A-10s just went to town, right? I just cleared them their discretion. You guys do what you need to do, go kill the enemy. And they just did it.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So we recovered. We had to blow up an M1 that had run over an anti-tank mine, and we became disabled. So we blew that up. We blew up the Vulcan. We grabbed all the wounded, and we hauled ass back to Saudi Arabia, right? Back across the berm. So we got back, and like the brigade commander's got blood on his mop suit, sergeant major's there, and I get out of the track and I'm smoking a cigarette with my crew, right? And the brigade commander comes over and he's like, who controlled the A-10s? And the major's standing there and he's like, Airman Loescher did it. And he came over and he gave me a hug. He goes, you saved our asses today.